When Emily sent the wedding invitation to her ex, Captain Daniel Hayes, it was meant as a cruel joke, an impulsive act fueled by pride and buried resentment. After all, Daniel was a single dad, a former Army veteran who had sacrificed everything but ended up with nothing, at least in Emily's eyes. He wasn't supposed to belong in her new, polished world where she was marrying a successful banker with prestige, wealth, and connections. The invitation was a mockery, a way of saying, "Look at what you lost." But on the wedding day, as the guests turned their heads toward the grand entrance, a hush fell over the crowd. Daniel walked in, not quietly, not humbly, but with a presence that shook the very air. Behind him, 4 children followed, well-dressed and bright-eyed, clinging to him as though he were their entire universe. And just outside, through the tall glass windows, a private jet gleamed on the runway, marked with the emblem of one of the largest companies in the country. Daniel had arrived, not alone, not broken, but alongside the CEO who had backed him, believed in him, and helped him build a future that no one, not even Emily, could have imagined. Emily's heart dropped. Just a few years earlier, when they were still together, Daniel had been a man of quiet dignity, still adjusting to civilian life after years of service. He struggled with sleepless nights, the memories of war, and the impossible task of balancing his role as a father to his young son while trying to hold down jobs that barely paid the bills. Emily, ambitious and impatient, couldn't understand why he wouldn't push harder, or be more like other men, who climbed the ladder of success with relentless drive. Their relationship cracked under the weight of her expectations and his exhaustion. "I can't keep living like this," Emily had said one stormy night. "You'll never be enough." Those words seared Daniel's heart, but he let her go. He loved her enough not to fight her need for a different life. What Emily never knew was that Daniel's story didn't end there. After their breakup, Daniel poured himself into being the kind of father his son needed. Along the way, he fostered 3 other children, siblings who had been abandoned by their relatives. He hadn't planned to adopt, but the day he met them, sitting quietly in a children's shelter with fear in their eyes, he saw pieces of himself in their pain. He couldn't walk away, so he opened his heart and his home. The struggles multiplied, 4 kids, mounting expenses, endless nights working odd jobs, but so did Daniel's determination. One fateful evening, after fixing a CEO's car that had broken down on a rural road, his humility and kindness caught the man's attention. The CEO, Charles Whitman, saw potential where others saw failure. He offered Daniel mentorship, a position in his company, and eventually a partnership in launching a foundation that supported veterans and foster children. Within 5 years, Daniel transformed. He wasn't the broken veteran Emily remembered. He was a leader, a father of 4, and a man whose life inspired hundreds. Now, standing at Emily's wedding, Daniel wasn't there to gloat. He wasn't there to prove her wrong. He had only come because the children insisted they wanted to see the princess in her dress. To them, Emily wasn't the ex who had left their dad, she was just someone important in his past. But the sight of him shattered Emily's carefully constructed image. Her fiancé, noticing the whispers and the awe of the guests, clenched his jaw. How could he compete with a man who carried his scars with such grace and who was loved so fiercely by 4 children who looked at him as if he hung the moon? During the ceremony, Emily's hands trembled. When the vows came, she faltered, her voice catching. She looked at her fiancé and then at Daniel, who sat quietly at the back with his children leaning against him. His eyes held no bitterness, only calm acceptance. That look struck her deeper than any sharp word could have. Memories rushed back, the man who had stayed awake with her during her panic attacks, the one who had once sold his own guitar to pay her tuition bill, the one who kissed her forehead before deployment with a promise he wasn't sure he'd survive to keep. She realized too late what she had thrown away. But Daniel didn't come for her. He came for closure, for peace. When the reception ended, Emily approached him with tears in her eyes. "I thought you'd never make anything of yourself," she whispered, her voice breaking. "And now look at you, you're more than I ever believed." Daniel smiled gently, his youngest tugging at his sleeve. "I didn't do it to prove you wrong, Emily. I did it because they needed me. And because, after everything, I needed them too." For the first time, Emily understood. True success wasn't in wealth, prestige, or marrying into the perfect image. It was in sacrifice, resilience, and love, the kind Daniel carried every day for those children. As Daniel left, hand in hand with his kids, Emily stood frozen, her wedding dress suddenly feeling heavier than steel. Her guests admired him, not her groom. And deep inside, Emily knew she hadn't just lost a man, she had lost the kind of life money could never buy. Daniel boarded the jet with his children, not as a man who came to boast, but as a father who had finally found his place in the world. The plane lifted, and so did the weight of his past. The message was clear: sometimes life's greatest victories are born not out of proving others wrong, but out of proving to yourself that love, faith, and perseverance can rebuild even the most shattered hearts. And Daniel Hayes had done just that.